Well, I want to be where Andrew Kehrer is right now. That backdrop looks fantastic. Looks like a place where I could do some meditation. We're not going to do meditation here, but yeah, all of that greenery. It looks beautiful back there. But we are going to tell Andrew's story here on the Onto Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio, also working in live events as a broadcaster. Andrew is an Emmy Award-winning creative leader, art. He just dominates. And we're going to talk about not just his journey professionally, but learn more about him on a personal side as well. Andrew, first of all, excited to have you on. I know that we've been looking forward to this for a while, and I wanted to start here.
Can I just say thank you, Bryan, for shining a light on different areas of the sports industry, the broadcast industry. I've seen a lot of familiar faces on your podcast, and I've been waiting for a very long time for that phone call to come in from you. But I think it's really awesome that in our industry, there's so much on-air talent, and those are the faces and the names that everybody knows, but there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. So I love what you're doing, and you're shining a light on everybody else as well. So thank you so much for this podcast. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Well, Andrew, I appreciate you saying that, because one of the goals here is tell the story of those who don't get that platform to tell their story. And as you said, when people think about a broadcast, they'll look right at the on-air talent. They'll want to talk to them. And sure, we'll do that here on this conversation series, or talk to a producer, or talk to a director. But there are so many more people that are grinding and doing, grueling work to put on the broadcast. They don't get the credit. And I love to talk about everybody's story. There's nothing off limits here. And certainly I am going to look forward to what we get into, which takes me to what I wanted to start with. I know, Andrew, your dad has been called a self-made man, but I want to know why that label works for you too.
So my dad was a small business owner in New Orleans, Louisiana, where I grew up, in the Big Easy. We grew up on the West Bank, and he's a golfer by natural talent. He's an amazing golfer, and I think he probably could have gone pro in his day, but he was also very much interested in business, and he got involved in the roller skating business. There was a franchise called Skate Country. It still exists to this day. And he was in Iowa, where most of my family is from, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And he ended up running a roller skating rink in Tucson, Arizona, where I was actually born. And before I turned one, he ended up moving to New Orleans to set up another roller skating rink. So I was kind of a roller skating brat that moved across the country and grew up, on quad skates. And I call him a self-made man because any small business owners out there, it's probably the hardest job. Everybody's got a hard job, right? Everybody's got responsibilities, but when it's your name on the line, and when it's when you work for a big company, when the bad times are bad, it's kind of there's a little bit of a safety net. But when you're a small business owner, when the bad times are bad, it's you, and there's a lot of people that you've hired that look up to you and are counting on you, and their livelihoods are counting on you. So I've always really admired that about him, and I attribute. So I started working there very young. I think I turned around 12 or 13 when my dad, my parents cut me off from my allowance and said, if you want money, you got to come work for me, which, honestly, at that age, pretty good deal, working at a roller skating rink, listening to music, being around kids my own age. And I slowly worked my way up, through college. I stayed part of the business before I moved out on my own. So I really learned a strong work ethic. I learned to take pride in my work, to really, really take pride in it, because what you put into it is what you get out of it. Yeah. And he really stuck to his guns. He ran a tight ship, And it was the little mundane details that, as a teenager, you're like, who cares? Like, oh my God, like it's not the cleanest thing in the world. It's going to be okay. Like, there's more important things to worry about. He worried about that stuff. And I think I really took to that. And I still use so many of the skills that I learned working at a roller skating rink, handing out roller skates, or putting, hot dogs in the machine in the snack bar, or hosting birthday parties, or, taking care of the things on the actual rink and then managing and helping with the finances and stuff like that. So I very much admire him, and I attribute a lot of my work ethic and just business sense and everything to him.
Andrew, you admire him. And so as we start to look at your professional career and the steps you made, as we get to sort of the early start here and chronicling that, what about when reflecting on those days, would he admire most about you in the way you handled those moments?
Ooh, I hate doing this. I hate when somebody asks you a question and it's like, that's a great question. It happens like literally all the time. But that is a really good question.
Thank you.
I'd like to think that he could see maybe some of himself in me. We are very different people. We have different personalities and everything. But when it comes to like black and white business, we have very similar opinions on how things should be handled. And I can, usually talk to him about this, that, or the other. And management is something that I learned a lot from him. And when you're managing teenagers at a roller skating rink or making minimum wage and everything, and then you go on in your career, you're managing other people, there's still a lot of parallels in there. And so I'd like to think that he could see some of himself in my career. That would make me very happy for him to know that. And I'm sure, hey, Dad, I'm really hoping that you're watching this at some point, or watching it for the 100th time. Really appreciate that. Bump those numbers. So yeah, I think that would make me very happy if he could see that he made a dramatic impact. And he was in the community, on the West Bank of New Orleans. We were in a town called Gretna, and it was a small town. And you can talk to anybody from the West Bank that grew up in the late 70s through the early 2000s and mention his roller skating rink and say Mr. Steve. And a lot of, oh my God, I remember having my birthday party there. I remember Mr. Steve. That's nice that he's reached out. He's impacted a lot of people.
I'm wondering when your dad's going to have a chance to watch this because of all the hours that he is on the golf course. I don't know when he's going to make time. I'm sure he will, because you can't really play golf at night, although there are glow-in-the-dark golf balls. And knowing who your dad is and how much he loves the sport, maybe he'd find a way to play in the dark, but maybe that would be the time.
Have you tried chasing one of those down? 250-yard drive and like, oh, there, what?
Yeah. The thing about it is it's a great idea, but unless you can have a glow-in-the-dark part of the flagstick, where are you hitting to? But I didn't invent that. Maybe I should. Again, there are some complications to it. So you get into the NBA, and I know we're sort of fast forwarding a little bit into your career, but you start working in the NBA, and the way in which that all morphed for you, how would you recall the beginnings of your career really starting to take off?
So I got to back up a little bit before that. And I just say that because the NBA, oh God, such a great time. But it was when I was working for WHNO TV 20 in New Orleans. And that is a Christian television broadcaster. I was heavily involved in post-production, editing, motion graphics, and we're talking, early 2000s. So the industry has evolved really, really leaps and bounds since then. But some of my coworkers were, they also worked sports. WHNO TV 20 was doing Friday Night Lights high school football games. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth a little bit, learning the ins and outs of sports broadcast. But a lot of those people introduced me to freelancing over at the time, the Louisiana Superdome and the New Orleans Arena, the Baby Dome, what I like to call it. And I'll just tell a quick story because, and this is something that a lot of professionals will tell you, you know, right place, right time, right? Like, how did you make it? Right place, right time. So one of my coworkers was running graphics for the Jumbotron show for the New Orleans Hornets. They had just moved from Charlotte. It was their inaugural season. I believe that was 2003. And he's like, "Hey, do you want to come to the arena and shadow me? Just, you know, check it out. I'll introduce you to some people." Because he knew I was like super interested in all of this, like live sports, and you know, just very, very interested. So I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, this is amazing. I'm gonna get go to the control room. This is so super excited." And so we got there a couple hours early, and he was showing me the graphics package. He was running Kehrer Infinite at the time, and it just so happens that the video engineer called out sick, and the production manager at the time, his name's Toby Valladay, and he is still a very good friend of mine to this day. He was like, "Hey, I know you're new to all this, but think you can shade some cameras?" And the correct answer was absolutely not. I've never even touched one of those things before in my life. But what I said was, yeah, because any professional will tell you, always say yes, right? Like if an opportunity presents itself, but I was very upfront. I'm like, I don't know the system or anything. I'll walk you through it. You know, it'll be really easy. And you know, in about 20 minutes, I was able to, you know, very poorly shade cameras for an NBA game. Like, oh my God, I know it was an IMEG show, but still, it was pretty awesome to me. And I guess I did something right, because then I was asked to, "Can you come back? You know, would you be available to come back?" And I'm like, "Well, to do this? Like, I am not an engineer. Like, I'm a video editor. I'm a motion graphics guy." And they're like, "Yeah, but you know, you paid attention and you followed instructions, and you did, you know, in my mind, a lot of it's just common sense. Listen to the director, listen to what he's telling you, follow along with the game. Don't nod off." And through that moment, like again, right place, right time. And I don't even know who the guy was that called out sick, but I really should send him a gift basket, because it kind of got my foot in the door, and I just ended up learning every position in that room. Everything from, you know, what I came to learn mostly was the CG stuff, like the Chiron, but instant replay, obviously the video engineer, the audio, and it fascinated me, this whole intricate system to make this whole thing work. And I dove both feet into the deep end and just wanted to spend as much time as I could over there. And I was like, whatever you need me to run cable, I'll run cable. You need me to grip, you need me to, you know, whatever you need. I just want to be here and learn. And that ended up happening. It worked out well enough that, you know, obviously a big arena and stadium like the Superdome brings in concerts, corporate events, conventions, tons of events. So, you know, I was cutting my teeth on some pretty amazing, high profile things that I probably have no idea how I ever would have fit my foot in the door, other than just constantly like, "Hey, you got anything for me? Hey, I'm available. Anything you got?" So I got really, really lucky. And that ended up turning into a full-time job as a production coordinator for the management company, for the Superdome and the arena. And I'm getting to the point. I promise you, Bryan, I'm getting back to your original question. I just felt the context needed to be there. But I always tried to input my passion has always been post-production, graphics, editing, special effects, 3D, now AR, XR, anything with an R behind it, Unreal. I'm still very passionate about it. And I've always injected that into whatever role that I had, wherever I could. So you need a highlight reel made? Cool. Can I throw some graphics on top of it? Cool. You know, things along those lines. And that got the attention of the game ops director for the New Orleans Hornets at the time, Joshua Richardson. And again, I'm still very close friends with Josh. And he found out that I was actually helping to build some of the graphics for the Hornets games. Like I would come in early, and that was one of my responsibilities, was to go through the rundown, any sponsored graphics, any LED animations, anything. If it's not there, you know, can I build it real quick? Can I do this? You know, and they found out that I had those skills. And my time with the management company was short, sadly, and it ended up, they offered me a full-time job being a producer, a game night producer slash video editor, graphics person. I can't remember exactly what my title was when it started, but it turned into a production manager slash game night producer for the New Orleans Hornets.
So you took all of these different duties and all these skills. And by the time you are working with the Hornets, Andrew, there's really not anything you couldn't do when it comes to broadcasting, because like you said, you say yes to everything. And by doing that, you learn different intricacies of the job and sort of learning the different angles and in ways in which everything is put together. How did all of these skills learned help you into what came next for you?
So let's put a distinction between I could do as opposed to I shouldn't do. So
Okay.
you're right. I did learn,
Yeah.
and I could do it. However, I shouldn't do certain things. And I learned that early on. You know, being a jack of all trades is great. But do you want to be somewhat good at a lot of things, or do you want to be really good at a few things?
Yeah.
So I always kind of go for the latter on that one. But being a producer, which is what I am right now, it helps to understand the whole, to be able to call out when somebody is saying something and it's like, no, that's right. All you need to do is like connect these two wires and you're going to be fine. So I think that the good producers are the ones that take the time to really learn everything as a whole. Kind of like a captain of the ship knows everything, right? When you're on a project, you really do need to know everything. And same thing goes with a broadcast. If you're in charge of a broadcast, you really do need to know everything and everyone. So the question was, how did all those skills help me moving on? It didn't. It helped me in the current job. And this leads us to the next kind of evolutionary step in my career, which was Katrina. So I was my first full season with the New Orleans Hornets. Again, they're the Pelicans now. We got to follow the rules. They are the Pelicans. And it was the 04-05 season, which was a rough season, sadly. We were 18-64, sadly. But it was a great learning season for me. And then during the off season, August of 05, that's when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. Didn't exactly hit New Orleans, but we were spread across the country, and it was a very very different time, because there was no such thing as social media at the time the way that we know it now. We used Yahoo groups, and it was basically a message board to communicate. If you could get somebody on the phone, that was great, but a lot of people were all over the place. And again, cell signals weren't what they were. My family evacuated to my parents in Tennessee. They'd moved out of New Orleans several years before that, and we had a place to go to. And I literally had to walk down the road about half a mile to get a cell phone signal to be able to try and contact anybody, which meant most of the time that I was sitting in front of the TV, watching CNN, praying for one of the helicopters to go over my neighborhood to see if my house was flooded or not. But I wasn't getting any phone calls. Nobody could reach me, and I couldn't reach anybody. So it was very different. But we ended up going to Oklahoma City, and then we were known as the New Orleans Oklahoma City Hornets. And we did really well out there. And a big shout out to Oklahoma City as well. They welcomed us with open arms and treated us like family. If you walked anywhere in downtown Oklahoma wearing your work polo, your money's no good here. Please. You know, we know what you're going through. So God bless everybody in Oklahoma City. And their sports fans are just amazing. part of our job in game ops is to get people, really excited about the team, especially in the down moments. So to all the game ops people out there in any sport, way to go. You've got a tough job. When the team's doing well, it's awesome. When they're not doing well, you still got to do your job and get the crowd into it. So hats off to all of
Yeah.
y'all out there. But needless to say, we did really well in Oklahoma City. So well that, rumors had started that we might stay. And that kind of scared some of us that were native New Orleanians, because, our home had been decimated. And we wanted to go back. We wanted to help rebuild. We really were conflicted because we were doing so well in Oklahoma City. It's an awesome city. So a lot of us were conflicted. And several of us, myself included, I can only speak for myself, were looking for other opportunities. We wanted to go back home, but that wasn't an option. Most businesses at the time, again, this is more of an opinion than a fact, but most businesses that I saw coming back really early ended up failing because there was nobody living in the city for a very long time. A lot of people evacuated, and there is a percentage that stayed wherever they were. Atlanta, Houston, the Panhandle of Florida. So it was kind of, hey, just find, is there work anywhere else? And it just so happened that one of my close coworkers had gotten a job with Fox Sports Florida, the old Sunshine Network in Orlando. And he happened to put my resume on the creative director's desk at the time. His name's David Piccolo, again, very good friend still to this day. And he took a chance on an NBA game night producer to be a promotions editor. I worked in the creative department for Fox Sports Florida and Sun Sports, and my main job was to edit promos. I did have a lot of skill set from doing the videos that I did for the Hornets, high impact, exciting, everything that translates really well. But as far as the broadcast stuff goes, as far as what we were just talking about, no, it didn't translate at all, other than the video editing, the motion graphics, everything else. I kind of had to put on a shelf for a little while, but not too long.
Yeah, because, and you set yourself up for what's coming up next, which I hope I'm not skipping any steps here, but I know this was a very important part of your career, and that is what you did with Golf Channel. And the way in which you were able to take any skills from working in promotions in Florida at that affiliate at the Fox Sports Florida and the Sunshine Network, and then how did you use that when you got to Golf Channel, and how did the Golf Channel challenge you to learn new things that you hadn't been accustomed to before?
Yeah. So Fox Sports Florida, it was kind of a journey because our creative department was really small, and I do like I do like small environments where more people can do more things out of necessity, more so than any other reason. Like, all of a sudden, if you're in a department with only 4 people in it, and somebody comes up with a good idea, or the sales team sells somebody on this really interesting idea, you don't have anybody to rely on, and usually the budget's not big enough to bring in an expert. So we're like, yeah, we'll take a crack at that. We'll do something cool. So you end up touching on some new technologies. So I moved from the editor position, the graphics editor position, Predator, in the promotions department. My boss, again, Dave Piccolo, he ended up leaving Fox and going to Golf Channel. And there were some years that because of that move, I was able to move up. So I ended up taking a role of somewhat management, which was interesting because we were a small group. We were all peers together. And then all of a sudden, they're like, hey, we need to give you some more responsibility and kind of fill the role that Pick had, which I did. And then it moved into the marketing department as well. So I think by the time I left Fox Sports, I was the marketing manager for Fox Sports Florida. So luckily, there was a little bit of a business decision to move the home office from Orlando, Florida to Fort Lauderdale for Fox Sports, which kind of like was a ton of bricks on a lot of us, because Orlando's Central Florida. We're near all the teams that we represent. If we need to go to the Panhandle, we can. If we need to go to Miami, we can. So to be all the way down there, it didn't make a ton of sense to us, but that was the business decision that we had to live with. So a lot of us were like, okay, I own a home. My kid's in school. I have a life here that I've built in Orlando. I don't want to move it. Other people are like, yeah, sure. I'm happy to move. No problem. So I was in the former. I'm like, I can't move. I can't move my family. So luckily, Pick, if you're watching this, I know I've thanked you a lot of times, but thank you again for taking another chance on me, because when Golf Channel at the time had just merged with NBC Universal. So Golf Channel was kind of a mom and pop operation. Comcast ended up purchasing them, and then Comcast ended up purchasing NBC Universal. So when all that happened, it opened up a lot of opportunities to grow inside that. So I was able to get a full-time job as another graphics producer role, predator in the creative services department. So starting off small, if anybody's familiar with Golf Channel, 24-hour global channel dedicated to the sport of golf. At the time, so this was 2011, we were doing all the live golf tournaments, instruction shows, magazine style programming, morning news, evening news, tons of opportunity, and it was all internal. Everything was done in-house. So while I went from like a team of 4 to 5, now I'm in a team of like a dozen that were doing everything. And everything for the entire network. So I started off at the bottom, just getting working on the news, working on the individual shows, working on the tournament side and everything. And then slowly, making my way up into a senior art director role, in essence, helping run the department for our graphics room with a couple of the other art directors.
Andrew, I have a feeling we're going to do a part 2 of this because, because I have one more question for you, but I have a feeling we're going to miss some things. So just so you know in advance, if you want, I would love to throw that at you, but I want to throw one more question your way. And that is, so having a father that is a golf nut, to have a son work at Golf Channel, what was his reaction to you rising the ranks there with Golf Channel?
Why haven't I received my polo yet? Where's my hat? do you get discounts on the equipment? Do you get discounts on tee times? No, he was. My dad is definitely in the core of live tournaments. He loves watching the live tournament golf. Not so much a fan of all the other editorial stuff, and he doesn't really need the instruction himself. So. He was stoked. And my very first week there, my boss, David Piccolo, took me out to Arizona, to Tucson, Arizona, back home that I don't even know, up to Dove Mountain for, at the time, it was the Accenture Match Play event. Oh, yeah. That was my first week at Golf Channel, was to go and spend a week out there, because it was one of the first integrations of Golf Channel and NBC. So of course I'm in a trailer, and the producer, Tommy Roy, I'm sure a lot of you out there have heard of him. He is an amazing producer. And he's giving his speech, and I'm in the room with Sir Nick Faldo. I'm in the room with Dan Hicks. I'm in the room with these people that I've been seeing on TV, and they're just normal people just chatting it up, and they're chatting it up with the crew, like even the cameramen that are out there, they're all there. It's a family out on the road, and I'm sitting here with my phone, like taking pictures and like sending them to my dad and being like, hey, look where I am, and he's like, show me the course. No, he was impressed. So it definitely opened up his eyes to that sort of the world and the business and everything behind it. So I like to think he was proud.
Well, Andrew, it's interesting. You talk about meeting all of those greats at Golf Channel who you had watched, you had seen, and you're trying to take pictures. Now, what's fun about this conversation is now I'm taking pictures at you, spotlighting you. You're the one that is the focus here, and rightly so, given what you are doing, what you have done in the business, and your dad would be very proud, and certainly is. Your golf game, that's up for debate there, Andrew. About
Very much so.
yeah, Andrew. I'm Bryan Fenley. Andrew Kehrer is with me. Thanks so much, man, for telling your story, man. This was so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.